am under the belief that my wife is being shunned unofficially by the local Jehovah Witness congregation here. And it's not an official shunning or marking. I don't think it was marked, but more of the parishioners taking upon themselves to cast judgment against my wife and brand her as not a strong enough JW, I think is what they call it, to have an association with her, which goes against every other social group sort of workings, I would say. I don't even know how to put it in words. More like if one person out of your group is not up to par or falling behind or anything like that, you would reach on back and give that person a hand to bring him back into, the fold, or to bring it back into whatever group that you're in. Even the military will slow down a little bit to bring you back up into standards. Even the military does that, and some, secular places out there, organizations. And I believe my wife's unofficial shunning or not having associations with other personnel of the congregation is perpetrated by her parents, my in-laws. And in the last video, I described how they are desperate social climbers. They want to climb up that JW ladder, especially mostly the dad, because only men could climb up that ladder, and the wives, they could only hope to, ride on the shirt tails of the men climbing up that social standing among the JW world. Not much room for improvement inside the congregation, even though you're all supposed to be the same. But everybody wants to be, looked up to or have that standing, and wonderful things being said about you because you're going up the ladder. As far as evidence of what I've said is taking place, and blaming my in-laws for my wife's sort of poor standings among the congregation here, it's circumstantial evidence, and also possibly a witness that kind of hears the rumor mill. A friend of my wife's that they're pretty close. Not too close, but close enough to where the friend is telling her, some shady stuff going on in the background. The rumor mill, the gossip train. But it's like this. When I first met my wife a couple of decades ago, between, 15 and 20 years ago, she moved in with me and started going to a local congregation. This is in a separate city. And she went there, and from there she got reinstated because she was disfellowship. And after she was reinstated, she had no problems making friends. She had many friends. We were invited everywhere. Even with me being worldly, I would also get invited. Not by them as through my wife, but my wife wanted me to be there. But there wasn't no poor sort of standings in the congregation with my wife. She was, she had a social life there, and she loved the JW social life, from going out into service and, that whole JW routine. My wife was in it lockstep. And it was a social network for her in that setting there, which is at the time for me thinking it was, hey, fine and dandy. She's out there having fun, and I would accompany my wife to, picnics and, group parties and get-togethers and so forth, and it was fine. My wife had plenty of friends and did things outside the JW sort of religious routine, like, going out to trips and things like that, going out into the city, or just having a cup of coffee with her friends in an afternoon or something like that. So that was when we first met. And then a job opportunity came up, and we moved to another city up north. And same thing, she checked into her local congregation there. Elders came out and gave my wife a shepherding call, as they would say, and pretty much is for them to kind of see what we're all about and see how our, get the load down on us on how we are as a couple, I would believe, and also to try to get me to be recruited as well. They try hard, but same thing. And this time we were in our mid to late 20s in this other new city. We had no other family members around. It was just us two and our dog. And the same routine. My wife checked into this new congregation, made plenty of friends, had a lot of girlfriends. We were invited to parties and picnics and get-togethers, and some of the other JW personnel that were our age, they went out into the local city there for the nightlife, whether it be a sports bar or something to that effect, just going out at night and just having a good old time. And I was along with that group too, accompanying my wife and just having a good time. And my wife had plenty of friends. She has no problem making friends. So, another job opportunity. This is the third one now. We moved to another city towards the east. So, we moved there, same routine. She checks into the local congregations, gets settled down. We get a shepherding call so they find out what we're all about, I guess. I never partook. I would just go to the other room, and I would cordially just, be polite and respectful but that's about it. I don't sit there and talk to them much, except for, hey, how you doing? What do you do? And, the normal niceties, I guess. They're really nice when they first meet you. But this group here in this other city, they were really nice. I really liked them, the people there. Yeah, I really did like them. In this particular city is the same routine. My wife made plenty of friends. My wife, she is the bomb. She can make friends with anybody. She's a very nice person by nature. Her true nature is a really sweet, nice, fun person to be with. That's why I'm still here with her and fighting to keep what I known and have grown to be with, with her. And she is worth the fight. But if you meet my wife and have a conversation with her, you guys will be instant friends, no doubt about it. She doesn't have a mean bone in her body. She's just a great person. And you could just tell, there's some people that cannot fake that. You can't keep up that image for too long, because sooner or later, it would, your true colors will show. But with my wife, she's a natural. She can make friends anywhere. So now another job opportunity, actually transferring to another location, to a sort of cheaper area to live in, where things are somewhat more affordable for us, and we have our first child too. So we moved. This was going to be the place that we were going to set our roots in. We actually brought a home at this time, the first home. My wife checks into the local congregation here where we're living at presently. And, routine as usual. My wife checks into the local congregation, starts going to the meetings there, and starts making a bunch of friends. The first couple of months, it was, business as usual. And we actually held a baby shower in our house that we were here within a month. We had the whole, place packed full of people, the kids all running around, and I was playing the guest, helping the ladies, get settled down and serve them drinks and stuff. And I was getting to know them, and they were getting to know us as well. And, it was very nice. But then the in-laws shows up. They came down to visit that first couple of months, I think. And they liked the area so much that they wanted to move in our area here. My wife and her parents never had the best of relationship, especially the mom. My wife's got some really bad mom issues. And sometime soon here right now. We're getting all our ducks in a row here. She's actually going to go to therapy. It's being paid for by our medical insurance, but she's looking into getting some therapy, to talking to a therapist about her mom issues. The mom is very abusive, even to this day, but in a more subtle way, very sinister. So after a while, they actually moved into our community there. They actually live somewhat like between 10 miles away from us, but they live real close now, and they're in the same congregation as where my wife is going. And mind you, my wife moved out in her early 20s, late teens, and left that abusive relationship, became her own independent woman, and that's when we met, not too much afterwards. And now this is decades later now, when she moved into where we're living at now. We're in our late 30s now. And you figure all this time passing, my wife hasn't lived in or been near her parents' location or living in their home for a good 15 years now. And at this point, my wife is in her early 30s, mid-30s. And we're grown. We're both grown and matured in our own way. And you would figure that other people would too, especially her parents. We figure, well, whatever head games that they had before, maybe that's in the past. Maybe my wife was a knucklehead back in the day, giving her parents, trouble, and this is how they reacted. Well, they came out here. They're pulling the same stunts as they did when my wife was living in their home. Mostly as the mom. The dad, he's pretty much absent-minded. He's not absent-minded, but he's not really involved. He doesn't take part in that. Maybe they talk between them two, the wife and the dad, but he's somewhat aloof, or that's the impression that I get most of the time. But it's mostly the mom. She started playing the same head games. It's like she picked up where she left off 15, 20-something years ago towards my wife. And we would think that, maybe it won't be too bad. Our kids will have their grandparents nearby, and that's a good thing. And maybe they matured in their ways. We definitely matured and grown up some since then. But no, they picked up right where they left off as far as the verbal abuse, the snide comments, it almost seems like jealousy in a way, if I were to describe it. My in-law mom towards the daughter, my wife, and now they're somewhat 10 miles away from us, and they're going to the same congregation. And within 4, 5, 6 months of us living here now, things started to change very slowly. Now we're living here for a good, I would say, 8 years. That's just a number I'm throwing out there. But it's about that time frame, that span of time that we're living here now, and including the in-laws, they're here at that sort of same time in a way. And now their slander campaign towards my wife has hit critical mass, where within less than a year of the in-laws moving here, my wife has minimal friends, with only maybe, I would count maybe 1 or 2. I would say just one really good friend that really talks to her. Maybe 2 or 3. Not the same numbers that we've seen before in other places. We do not get invited to parties anymore, or to picnics, or to social gatherings, associations, if you will. And like I said, my wife and I, we have both grown and matured in our ways, and we're settled down. We have 2 kids that we devote the majority of our time raising, and we're pretty much here for them now, and we want them to experience, what every other parents want for their child. And since we're here with our roots planted firmly in ground in our new community, my wife is not getting the support from the congregation with that. You figure other moms, and there's a bunch of moms out here with, kids about the same age, JW community here, the congregations, you would figure that the moms will get together and have parties and, things like that. But that's not the case anymore. Even my kids they're old enough now and everything, they don't associate with other JW kids. Even now that I know that, they're somewhat discouraged to make friends with worldly kids, but where are they going to go? They're an unintentional victims of my in-laws slandering my wife towards the congregation, causing the congregation to shun my wife, which in turn indirectly actually shuns my kids from, the other kids of the congregation as far as, a social gathering outside of it, whether to go to the park or things of that nature. And if you ever meet my in-laws in person, let's say in a meeting or a district assembly or the big assembly there, they are the poster childs of the image of a JW senior in their midlife, JW world. They are, the poster child for a JW magazine. And, first impressions is that they're the nicest people in the world, and they'll bend over backwards to, help you out in whatever situation that you may have and invite you to a picnic or a barbecue, or, they're really sociable. Not so much towards their own family, which they've thrown under the bus. My impression is kind of like a preemptive strike towards the kids. So whatever they say, their character is discredited from the get-go. And, my wife, her character has been defamed and discredited from the get-go of them arriving here. So whatever my wife says anything, it will not be believed. Somewhat fuels the propaganda towards my wife as being, a disobedient child or whatnot, even though she's in her mid-40s now. Go figure. Who are they going to believe? This older, mature couple or the kids and their siblings? Pretty much that's where it stems from. And the mom has pretty much taken all of my wife's friends away from her. Whatever they're saying, and we know she's saying something, but we just don't know what. The analogy is that the well water here has been poisoned by our in-laws. I mean, we can't make amends towards the rest of the congregation, and my wife cannot make any amends or anything like that other than, and I've told her this, just be yourself, and sooner or later, people will realize that you are a nice, sweet person, and maybe even start to question what her parents said about her. And the only thing you could really do is just, wait for time to, show the truth as to your true character, because, if you can't fake your true nature, I mean, it could take decades, but sooner or later it'll pop up and people will realize, what your true nature is. But, it's a little too late for that now. And what really upsets me the most is how my kids, is thrown into this indirectly, where the other JW kids are being prevented from making friends or associating with my kids. So that really got me pretty pissed off. And I confronted my mother-in-law, and I had a pretty heated argument and called her out. And I'm the type of person that don't beat around the bush too much. I get right to the point and right to the source of the matter. And of course she denied everything, and it was pretty pitiful as far as her explanation. And I'm sure that got to the dad, the father-in-law. We actually asked him to come over to the house to pretty much to tell her to keep her wife in check because we're on to them and their, campaign slander against us. He really is not the confrontational type. He avoids it like the plague, is the impression that I get. And while he was here, he he pretty much tried to deflect the conversation to another subject entirely, out in left field, past the galaxy in another dimension. He started to talk about the financial, economic collapse of the world instead of talking about keeping our wife out of our business and stop slandering my wife. That was the conversation when he came over as sort of the male figure of his household, and he failed miserably. And at that point, I just lost all total respect for that man. It just went down the toilet. Respect for that man has gone to nothing, and I just look at him as a doofus. And I hope he really hears this particular video here. If I ever divulge myself and give myself away, that's what I think of him from that one particular time. No respect whatsoever. If anything, I pity the guy. But anyway, like I said, the kids are unintentional victims of all this, and I called her out. But after some time, and I didn't go off the hinge too much. Me and the wife started talking and everything, and my wife is still underneath the spell of the JW organization, so she's still a firm believer on that. She's really depressed about the whole situation, and she's not happy in this community here. We cannot financially move, and I totally would leave because of this, just pick up and go, but it would put us in a financial bind if we did, being that our house is upside down as far as what it's worth now. This video is going a little bit too long, so I'm going to go ahead and try to summarize sort of the silver lining in all this drama in my life here concerning my wife and her JW organization there, the Watchtower Society. And that is that little, lash out against my mother-in-law and pretty much my attitude towards the organization. By this time, it was still, my thought about the JW organization, even though I know of the red flags that I've mentioned before and everything. I still think as a normal American citizen, as far as freedom of religion, even as kooky as the JW organization may be in my mind at the time, I would still defend it because of the constitutional right or natural right, really, natural human right for any person to practice any religion that he or she wants. And I would protect somebody's right to do that, even though as strange as that religious belief may be to myself, I do not want to discriminate against anybody, but at that point of time there when all this drama has been taking place and I see how the congregation unofficially is treating my wife and how my wife is reacting and being distressed and mostly having anxiety problems now, that I, as a worldly person, I am waking up. You see, I think worldly spouses out there and people in general, the world, are asleep and also duped into defending this religion because it's one of the religions that is, popular, I guess. At that point, I'm saying that I had an awakening and started to look a bit deeper into the JW organization. And I have gone into the internet to find out about the JWs when the internet was, coming up, And not much, it wasn't much information out there, and it was a lot of hate and sort of a one-sided sort of conversation back when. But now it's somewhat of a difference now. You're seeing actual parishioners, ex-members getting out and telling their story in a human level and not being vindictive about it, or I'm sure they're bitter inside maybe just a little bit, but their composure when they present themselves on YouTube or Facebook or any other forum is telling their story in a personable way that really spoke to me, and that what caused myself to be woken up too into the hidden and subtle sort of mind games that the organization play on their parishioners, and how this, all this JW policy is making their members sort of act out against each other in an unfair or unhealthy way towards each other socially. But anyway, let me talk about the silver lining that I want to get the point across is, yes, I as a worldly person thinking, a critical thinker myself, I would like to believe, in fact, I was asleep, and now I'm seeing what's going on, and I'm trying to make my wife see what's going on, but like I said before in other videos, I cannot explain this to her, logically still. She still has to hit that rock bottom to find out what's going on for herself. And with all this drama that's going on in our lives, in both our lives, I think the final letdown of the organization is rearing up its head towards my wife, but it hasn't happened yet for her. As far as my kids, another silver lining of maybe the JW kids not being, allowed to interact with our kids in parties or whatnot. Hey, fine and dandy. My kids are making a lot of worldly friends at school. We even had I would count 2 or 3 play dates when the worldly other parents from school came over to our house to play with our kids. And my wife is talking to the moms or the dad, and so would I. And the kids are playing here at the house. And that's great. My kids are making worldly friends. So, and they don't know what's going on yet as far as, the JW stuff and the worldly stuff. But for them, kids are kids, and they'll play with whoever they like. That's happening now. That my kids are getting exposure to other kids in a more personable, other than school setting, where a hardcore JW family will only have their kids go to school and come right back and not interact in sports or anything like that. My kids are opposite. They're actually going to dance class, sports activities now, and the more the merrier. And my wife is, I wouldn't call her a soccer mom, but she's somewhat like that now. And taking my kids, to interact with other worldly kids out there too. So that's a silver lining out of all this debacle here. And it took me a while to sit down and sort of see that pattern there. As far as my wife, she's somewhat depressed, not very happy up here, not happy at all, really. I think the kids are the only thing that's keeping my wife sort of, grounded. And I try to be around, too. Don't get me wrong. I'm very involved, and I see this happening. But I'm letting it happen just to the point where she doesn't drown fully. When she's about to, that's when I go in and snag her out of the waves, or the deep pool, if you will. And I'm just letting all these little letdowns that the JW organization is perpetrating against my wife happen, so she could see what's happening and feel the animosity against my wife, I would say. Feel the conditional loving that the congregation is showing upon my wife. So sooner or later, I'll divulge more information to my wife, slowly but surely. Right now, we're both into the Scientology thing with Leah Remini, and that's helping out a lot. She is just riveted to the TV watching that show episode by episode, and you cannot deny the similarities between the both groups, the JWs and the Scientology, as far as how they treat their people. Maybe to a lesser degree for the JWs, but it's still parallel as far as the outcome of it. So yeah, I guess after all this letdown and sort of the organization showing their true colors towards my wife, as far as their social policy or the bitterness and the social climbing, backstabbing, culture of the JWs. With all that happening, perhaps this could be the moment where my wife could see what's going on. The JW organization actually is helping my cause to get her out of this particular predicament. They're doing my dirty work for me.